Welcome back to the Rules of Engagement. As a reminder, if you miss any of our content or you want to check out some of our additional YouTube-specific content, like comments of the day, and of course top 5s, top 10s, etc., go to youtube.com/official MLGSC2. Everything we do here, as well as at MLG Winter Championships, as well as the past Winter Season Showdowns, some of the beta matches, the 2v2v2v2 King of the Hills or whatever we played on Wednesday. All that great content is available for free in 1080p high quality definition on our YouTube, youtube.com/official MLGSC2. And if you leave comments and it's a good comment, we'll pick it for our comment of the day feature, as we do a couple of those a week. So feel free to leave comments. Feel free to subscribe as well to show your support. We're going to get into Flash versus Ret, game number 2 right now. Game number 2, we're going to talk about Zerg macro heavy opening. Then we're going to talk about taking a 4th base in Terran versus Zerg. And then we're talking about Widow Mines, some potential uses of them, the conventional uses, the unconventional uses, the uses that are actually fairly easy to execute that you guys should be doing at home that a lot of people don't always think of doing, and that can really improve your gameplay a lot. So we're going to jump into the Zerg heavy macro opening stage. And we're going to start this at the 8-minute mark. And last game, Rhett went very fast, meet us off 2 bases. This game, he says, you know what, that didn't work so well. Flash had too much stuff. He's playing a very, very common opening now. In fact, if you watch Life play, Life does this build the vast majority of his Terran versus Zergs. And the idea is that you take a relatively fast third, right? You see the third here is already done. Relatively fast third. You actually take the third and you start speed shortly after. Then what you next do is you need to make sure that you can defend harass, right? So you have a spine crawl your third, spine crawl guarding this ramp, and you're going double evo chambers, so you place them to narrow a choke in case Hellions or Marines try to run by. Well, most likely Hellions, potentially Reapers too. You can block this area with 2 queens, or you can quickly pull a drone to build a 3rd evo chamber or something like that. So make sure you have your layout very well thought out. Make sure you get spine crawlers, 1 or 2. You don't go crazy, just 1 or 2. And also, it's very important, make sure you get these upgrades. You should start these upgrades even before you go lair. Here, it's all roughly the same time, but you want to start these slightly before you go lair as soon as you can. Lair is your second priority. The reason why these upgrades are so important is because, 1, you're already delaying tech, and 2, the strength of this build is that you're going to have a lot of income and a lot more larva than normal, which means you're going to want to build a lot of Zerglings. So going forward here, if you're wanting to use a ton of Zerglings, the lair tech isn't as important as upgrading those Zerglings, right? That's your most important thing. Upgrade those Zerglings because you're going to be relying on them extensively, so they need to be able to fight very well in order to justify that amount of relying on them. So going forward, we can see here, you're going to drone up the 3rd base as you're getting the upgrades and the lair tech. From a Zerg perspective, watch this from Rhett's point of view here, right? The other things he's looking to is spread the creep, right? He has a couple extra queens, spreading creep wherever he can. Of course, if Hellions are there, you're not going to try to do that. Get the Overseers out to spot Widow Mines, right? He takes a hit in the face, but now he can send the Speedings out. Clears out a Widow Mine over here. Clears out that Widow Mine there to try to take control back into his hands. Now, while he's doing that, of course, Flash is doing what he always does. Macro, macro, macro. Defending counterattacks from the right side with this depot wall. Eventually, he's going to try to fully wall it as well as put a depot there, so Speedings have a harder time counterattacking him. And meanwhile, again, he's powering up with a ton of Marines now, adding more barracks, letting that fast third production really kick into gear as he looks to move out across the map. Now, if you're a Terran player, right, remember again, as you move out across the map, right, what can hit you? Counterattacks. What's the best way to spot a counterattack? Well, the ramp that they're usually going to come by to hit that counterattack, right? A counterattack will usually come down this way, around here, or come down this way, straight across. What does he have? He has a Widow Mine here to spot it. Gives him reaction time. Potentially, it could go up this ramp as well. What does he have here? A Widow Mine to spot it. So get those spotters out there so you can tell, does my opponent have a bunch of Speedlings running by and threatening me on the right side? Very, very important. But anyways, you're moving out to pressure. And he's also going to be thinking about taking the 4th base as the game goes on. And the general rule, if your opponent, if you plan on being aggressive, and if you're doing a style of Terran where you build a whole bunch of Marines, you want to be aggressive. Because if you sit and do nothing, and your opponent builds a whole bunch of Infestors, they all gain full energy, you're going to get rocked by mass fungal growth. So you want to keep the pressure on to force your opponent to have to fight you with lower tech units. So as you're being aggressive over here, right, you want to expand close to your opponent, right? And why do you want to expand close to your opponent while you're being aggressive? Well, let's actually kind of draw it out here on the map. So let's say your opponent has a base here that you want to attack, right? This is your target, their 4th base. That's the easiest of their bases to attack. You want to go in there and get damage done. So to do that, where is your army going to be? Well, let's say your flash are going to be yellow. Your army is going to be around this area, right? You already have 3 bases, right? You already have this base, you already have this base, and you already, of course, have your main. So you're thinking about the 4th, right? But what if you take the 4th here, right? What if you do this? Well, then how do you defend if your opponent attacks this way, right? Your army, all of a sudden, it has to go all the way here to defend. That's not any good, right? So ideally, you don't want to do that. You don't want to have to walk all the way back away from a stop the attack to defend. What you want to do is you want to take the closer base so that your army can easily go back to defend or can go to attack. Either way, your army is exactly where it needs to be for all the purposes. Of course, you still have to watch the counterattack here, but this way, if your opponent really has to go a long way across the map to attack from that angle, or they could go here, of course. But either way, it's a much longer route, and if they're doing that, you can easily hit this 4th base. You can easily go ahead and knock out this base long before they could circle around. As soon as you see the army over here attacking here, you can immediately go in, knock out the 4th base, and meanwhile, you use your rallied reinforcements. All these guys are building here. You can send them to defend. You can even pull back half your army. You know, these guys, you won't have a problem with defending that 3rd base too much. So going forward here, that's exactly what Flash is going to be doing. He's going to be pressuring this base, and at the same time, he's actually protecting his own command center as he builds it, which means he doesn't even have to build it back here and fly it out, because he knows there's no way Speedings can get there as long as his army stays present over here. Now, a little bit of a counterattack, no problem, because of the depots, the bunker. If there's a significant counterattack, the Widow Mines would, of course, spot it. Now we're going to get into Widow Mine usage. So, a couple of cool things about Widow Mines. One, yes, you want to have them with your army, so speed baitings can't destroy your army very easily. You can kite away from speed baitings, then the Widow Mines can take them out with good focusing. But also, notice what Flash does. He doesn't just have the Widow Mines with his army here. He also has the Widow Mines over here, right? So anytime the counterattack, right, he says potential counterattack, he's going to keep an eye on it. Now, where's it going? It's going straight down. He can take another piece of it out as well. And then by the time it gets down there, he can redirect units if he thinks he needs them. If it's just speedings like that, he probably doesn't need them with the bunker and a depot hole. But if those speedings, if he doesn't see them do anything for the next 30 seconds, if they don't appear, he'll suspect there's Banings morphing there, and then he can redirect his next reinforcements to help buffer this defensive zone. So he's fine there. Other things these Widow Mines do besides keep track of all the units, right? They keep track of expansion. Is a Zerg expanding here? Well, the first drone might likely die. I'll see the creep spread that way. Great way to keep track of expansions. Keep track of all the movement paths. Extremely, extremely important, right? So anytime you're in fact, let's actually bring this map up again. Anytime you're a Terran player, anytime you're a Terran player, and you're like, okay, I'm worried about playing on this map. Where should I put the Widow Mines? This also works if you're a Zerg player and you want to burrow Zerglings. People do this in Brooder all the time. SC2 players, as they get better, are going to start to do this. Once you have Brotech, burrow Zerglings as spotters everywhere. Protoss people do that with observers, depending on how many observers they have. You think about what locations are most important, and so to do that, you need to look at the different paths your opponent can take across the map. So, let's say on Cloud Kingdom, right? If your opponent is, of course, whatever race they are, they can lead their natural, they can go along this path right here, right? They can come along over here, right? Or they can come along through this way. There's all these paths, and then, of course, over here you have to watch out for. So basically, where should you put Widow Mines? Well, of course, over here you want some Widow Mines. Over here you need some more. If you can get one up there, that'd be great. If you can put one here, that'd be great. Put one here. Put them sporadically spread everywhere, right? And there's two things this does. One, if you put them at all these red X's, right? All these red X's, you have your Widow Mines. One, the first thing it does is you'll never be caught off guard, ever, from counterattacks. That alone is almost worth the cost. Number two, if your opponent wants to expand over here in this right side base, they have to clear the Widow Mines first, right? And that's going to be a big pain for them. And number three, you're going to get a bunch of free kills. It's not easy to clean those Widow Mines. Yes, they can walk around and slowly clean them up, but it's a very, very tiny cost to you. Widow Mines are very cheap. Same price as a Roach. Basically same as like a Zealot, something like that. So it's very, very disposable to throw a few out there. And it's going to take a lot of time cost for your opponent to clean up. And imagine, I mean, for Flash versus Life, etc., they can handle it, right? But even for them, it still is something to consider, is how much attention does it take. But especially if you're in a lower league, you're playing ladder, you throw Widow Mines out there across the map. Even if your opponent knows it and they're like, hi, he's trying to trick me, put a Widow Mine over there, I'm going to grab my 3 Stalkers, my Observer, and go and kill that Widow Mine. Well, your opponent probably just missed about 4 probes of production, so you're winning already. Even if you don't kill anything with the Widow Mine, you'll probably win, just because for you, it takes a second, right? You just go out there, you shift-click it, shift-click burrow, you forget about it for the rest of the game. For your opponent, it's going to take a little more concentration, and it'll probably mess up their macro. So it's always good to throw those Widow Mines out there, especially if you're at lower level, because it's very easy to do. There's no fancy micro. You can do it at your leisure, right? You're like, I'm on 3 bases, I'm not doing anything, I'm sitting here macroing up. That's the point where you go throw out some Widow Mines, right? It doesn't take too much effort, but for your opponent, it's going to take much more effort on their part. So really try to use those Widow Mines, both to keep track of the opposite side of the map you're on. There's that counterattack force. This is why you build these depots here. The Marines plus repair can easily defend that. And meanwhile, you also have them to defend your actual attack. Notice how they're spread out there behind his army, right? 2, and there's 1 further back there. So in case Rhett says, okay, actually there's another one right there. Rhett decides he wants to fight this army, right? He's like, okay, the Banans are going to come forth. If they send a small force, you take it. They send a big force, you retreat, let your Widow Mines do the damage, right? So as you push up, especially once you get on creep, you got to be very careful. This means you have to be ready to retreat at a moment's notice. So see that as soon as the Banans come in, you stim, you run straight back, just keep running until you get close to Widow Mines. And then all of a sudden the Widow Mines are going to start doing a lot of damage. All it takes is a couple shots, all the Banans die, you can be very cost efficient, right? Even though, I mean, of course here, Zerg actually ends up pushing his army back, but that was a very small force, and the Zerg lost everything, right? And the reason he pushed him back is because Flash has the rest of his army over here, the rest of it's rallied up over here, right? He's got armies everywhere. So as long as you're trading efficiently, which you're going to do if you have the Widow Mines to retreat to, most likely, right? Your opponent has to send their whole army to deal with that. You take out another base. And from here on for the rest of the game, I mean, with those big Widow Mine hits on the Banelings, the game is pretty much Flash's. The only way Rhett can come back here is if he can kill his 4th base, which Planetary, Widow Mines, not so good. And notice how he doesn't move these Widow Mines, right? These Widow Mines haven't really, well, these ones he moved up actually, but this Widow Mine hasn't moved, and it's already gone 16 kills. This one's gone 10 kills. This one's gone 12, and this one hasn't gone any. But if you add them up together, they've been insanely cost efficient, even if it was just Speedlings. And they've given him a map vision, right? If you think about what other races do to get map vision, right? A Protoss will spend like several hundred gas just to put observers just for map vision, right? A Zerg will risk losing a bunch of Overlords just for map vision. They'll send Speedlings, constantly sacrificing them. So the Widow Mine, you can get both map vision and the potential to get kills, right? Even, like I said, even if your opponent takes it out, it's not that big a deal, right? It's worth it just for the map vision alone, let alone the fact you can actually kill a lot of stuff with it as well. So going forward from here, I mean, I don't think we need to watch the rest of this game. Brett holds on for a bit with Ultra's play, but at this point it's 3-base Zerg versus 4-base Terran. If you look at the production tab, Flash is cranking out like 1 billion guys at once. Look at the income tab, Flash is like double because of, 4 bases plus mules. So it's pretty much a foregone conclusion from here. So we're just going to pause this game and give a few closing thoughts. If you're Terran against Zerg especially, but even in other matchups, if you have a factory, it's not doing anything, throw out Widow Mines, throw them across the map. It's never going to really hurt you. You're never going to lose the game because you put a Widow Mine on the wrong side of the map. As long as it's past 1 base. If you're being foragated and you run your Widow Mine across the map, that's not a good idea, right? But if it gets past this 7-8 minute mark, feel free to put Widow Mines in to keep track of where your opponent's moving around. It's almost always worth it. As a Zerg player, even though Rhett lost this game, watch that opening. Go to youtube.com/officialmlgsc2. This is Rhett vs. Flash game number 2 from the MLG Winter Championships. His opening is extremely solid. Building placement, the way he produces drones. Very strong opening. Most of the world's best Zergs use this opening. I extremely encourage you as a Zerg player to test it out. Now, as the game goes on, as a Zerg player, some things that you might want to do that the Rhett didn't is try to utilize Baning, Speeding, and counterattacks more. You got to really deactivate those mines on the right side of the map, right? That's what made Flash so confident in moving out and keeping the pressure on the left side is because the right side, he had that Widow Mine snare set up, right? So as a Zerg, you got to go around the Overseer and speeding, send one speeding to take the mine hit and come in and kill it. It's very micro-intensive, APM, and attention-intensive to do so, but it's something you have to do. As a Zerg, you have to threaten Terran with those counterattacks. So this wraps up the analysis of game number 2 between Flash versus Ret. Take a short break and be right on to game number 3.